There is a place in the North Atlantic Ocean where the night is never completely dark, because a light is lit there, a lighthouse, standing on the rocks, alone, surrounded by storms. But in December 1900, that light was extinguished one night. And when people reached there, they got light. But they did not find those three men who lit it. No corpse, no sign of struggle, no letter. Just empty rooms, stopped clocks, and a silence that has never broken. Far from the west coast of Scotland, there are 7 small cliffs in the middle of the Grey Sea. They are called Flannan Isles, and the locals know them as the 7 Hunters. No one lives here. No village, no house, no human voice. Just stones, air, and the sea. It was not easy to reach these islands. Seas all around, high cliffs, and a bad weather. This place was isolated from the world, as if someone had deliberately kept it away from everyone else. But an old belief about these islands had been going on for centuries. It was said that there was something extraordinary in the grass here that cured sick sheep, and the sheep that grazed here often gave birth to young children. The herdsmen would bring their cattle here, but they would go back at night. No one would stay. There was an unspoken belief that as soon as darkness falls on these islands, something else awakens. This belief was called superstition until December 1900. In 1896, the British Board of Trade decided to build a lighthouse on the largest island of the Flannan Isles, Isle in Moor. This sea route was dangerous for ships and required a lot of light. After 3 years of hard work, the lighthouse was built in December 1899. When it was lit for the first time that night, the light could be seen miles away in the sea. This was an achievement, a permanent sign of light on a dangerous road. There was an old chapel of St. Flannan on the island, which was named after these islands. 4 lighthouse guards were assigned, who worked in turns. Always on 3 islands, on 1 main land. 6-week duty, 2-week leave. An unruly, organized life that did not last a year. In December the 1900, there were 3 people on the island. James Duckett, a 43-year-old lighthouse guardian. 20 years of experience was behind him. He knew this job, this sea, and this responsibility. A wife and 4 children were waiting for him at home. Every time he went on duty, the family knew that he would return 6 weeks later. This was a sure thing. This time, he did not come. Donald MacArthur, a 40-year-old, was on an unoccupied island instead of a sick companion. A strict man who was known for his temper and tough nature. And Thomas Marshall, a mere 28-year-old, the second lighthouse guardian. The youngest of the 3 at the age at which life has just begun. The 4th guardian, Joseph Moore, was on his leave on the main island. When he returned, whatever he would get would cover his rest of life like a shadow. Around midnight on December the 15th, 1900, a steamship Arctur passed through this area. Captain Hullman's eyes went where the lighthouse should have been. But it was dark there. He noted it down, but when the ship reached the port, this information never reached the Northern Lighthouse Board. A small mistake. Perhaps that night someone must have thought that there was no light because of the weather. Perhaps someone must have thought that the next ship would receive the news. But the news did not go. And in those 11 days, no one knew what had happened to Eileen Moore. On December the 26th, the lighthouse tender ship Hesperus made a regular journey to Eileen Moore. Captain James Harvey, on his way to Dweep, saw something unusual at first glance. There was no flag on the mast. This may seem like a small thing, but the flag was a sign for the lighthouse guardians. It was a daily task. Not having it was indicating the absence of something. The ship honked. Nothing but the sound of the sea. A rocket flare was spotted. No answer. The silence coming from Dweep was not like any ordinary silence. Joseph Moore was on the same ship. He was returning from his vacation. He was sent ashore. Moore landed on the eastern bank. Everything was in place. Ropes, tools, nets. Nothing was wrong. He must have tried to explain to himself that maybe everything is fine. Maybe all three are busy with some work. He headed towards the lighthouse. The outer gate was closed. The main door was closed. The next door was also closed. And then the kitchen door, which was open. The air inside was cold and stale, as if no one had breathed for many days. The stove was cold. All the clocks were stopped. Moore peeped into each room. All the beds were empty, but not as if someone ran away suddenly, but as if someone got up in the morning and left for work and did not return. And then there was one thing that shook Moore the most inside. The lighthouse's lamp. Moore checked it and found that it was completely ready. It was filled with oil. The lamp was clean. The lens was clean. Everything was fine. It was just that it was not lit. All three men had prepared to light the lamp that evening, but they left somewhere before that. And when they left, they were in such a hurry or in such a situation that they did not return. A ready lamp that never lit. This was not just a fact. It was a silent testimony to the last moments of that night. If you like such unsolved and mysterious stories, then subscribe to the channel. Because here every story leaves behind such a question that cannot be answered easily. Moore went back on the ship and brought some more people. The next day, the entire island was searched. The eastern bank was fine. But when they reached the western bank, the scenery there was different. A large box of iron, which contained ropes and technical equipment, was missing. The ropes were scattered on the rocks. A strong iron railing was twisted somewhere. It was lifted from the root somewhere, and a lifebuoy, which was kept about 110 feet above the sea level, was missing from its place. No one had cut the ropes to tie it. It was broken, as if an invisible force snatched everything in a jolt. This is where the first real question arose. A heavy iron buoy at a height of 110 feet. Strong railings. Rocks. Who and how broke all this? Historian Mike Dash presented an important fact in his investigation. In the 1950s, a lighthouse worker stationed at Eileen Moore had signed a document stating that during a severe storm, sea waves can reach heights of up to 300 feet. The same lighthouse worker had tried to photograph these waves, and he himself was swept away in a wave. So a loss of 110 feet was not impossible. But this is where the matter gets more complicated. If the sea was so violent, then what were three experienced people doing on that bank at that time? This was not their first duty. Ducat had 20 years of experience. He knew the nature of this sea. He knew its temperament. The winds in that area were so strong that it was once considered to be Britain's strongest wind zone. How could three experienced people be so careless at the same time? And then the clue, which probably speaks the most, was Donald MacArthur's quote. In a hut in the lighthouse, MacArthur had the only heavy overcoat he had. The cold of December, the northern coast of Scotland, where the wind reaches to the bones, and a man had gone out without a coat. This was not carelessness. This was an indication that whatever happened, it happened so quickly that MacArthur did not have a moment to stop, to think, to pick up the coat. There was something that pulled him out immediately. During the search, a logbook was found. The last official entry was on December 13th, but there was also information on December 14th and 15th on one slate, in which the weather figures up to 9 a.m. on the 15th were included. This means that by 9 a.m. on December 15th, at least one person was on the lighthouse and was working normally. The weather was being noted. The day was going on. What happened after 9 a.m.? There is no written proof of this. That slate stopped there, as if someone had put a pen in the middle of the sentence. But there was one more thing in the log that kept the searchers restless. The log said that in the last few days, the spirits of all three protectors had fallen abnormally, and there was also a report of terrible storms. But in those days, no weather center in this area had recorded any storm. This is such a thing that is as easy to hear as it is difficult to think. Either that storm was limited to only these two islands, or something was happening inside those three that the outside world could not see. Thomas Marshall has a separate log, which has been questioned by some historians. But if that log is true, then what is written in it opens up another layer of those last days. Marshall wrote that the storm was so terrible that all three prayed together. He wrote that Ducat, who was a 20-year-old experienced, patient, and practical man, had become unusually quiet for many days. A man who always carried out his responsibilities with a calm mind had suddenly become silent, and MacArthur, who was known for his harsh temperament, had been seen crying. The man who never cried was crying. The last entry was, "This log does not tell the reason for his absence. It just tells what state he was in on the last day." And this is what is most shocking. These three men were broken, scared, under some pressure. Each would bring down experienced people like them. But why? This question was left unanswered with the last words of that log. There was another character in this whole story, who was overlooked for a long time. Roderick Mackenzie. There was a place called Gallon Head, 18 miles southeast of Eileen Moor. Mackenzie was stationed there as a sports protector, and he was given £8 a year so that he could see the light of the lighthouse every night and inform the head of Edinburgh about any unknown. This was a simple and straightforward responsibility. But what happened was completely different from this responsibility. When the investigator reached Mackenzie after his disappearance, his answer added another bitter truth to the investigation. Mackenzie said that between 7th December and 29th December, he had not been able to see the light of the lighthouse for 22 days. Not only did he see the light once on December 12th, he also admitted that he was worried, but he did not inform anyone. He just waited for more than 2 weeks. While according to the conditions of his duty, he had to inform the head of the lighthouse immediately about any anomalies. The report of the Northern Lighthouse Board states that if Mackenzie had informed on time, then perhaps some help could have reached earlier. And there is another aspect here that makes this whole matter even deeper. James Ducat had put a proposal to the Lighthouse Board some time ago. He suggested that the reaction of the signals of the lighthouse from the shore should be tested to find out how soon the help could reach when needed. That proposal was rejected. Perhaps Ducat had an idea that if anything went wrong on that single lighthouse, then help could come late. His suspicions turned out to be right, but he himself did not stay to know this. So what happened? During the investigation, many possibilities came up, and each had their own logic and their own limits. The first and most logical possibility was that a huge sea wave swept all three of them. Looking at the devastation that took place on the West Coast, it was assumed that perhaps something went into the water that day. 2 men went to bring it back. One wave caught one, the other tried to save it, and someone ran to MacArthur and called him. That why MacArthur left without a coat. And then the 3 of them sank into the sea, which they had known for years. This possibility is most likely to be true. But this answer brings another question with it. If the wave was so strong, then why didn't anyone find anything, any clothes, any signs, on the shores even after weeks? The sea often returns something or the other. This time, it did not return anything. The second possibility was psychological. A separate land, weeks of solitude, harsh weather in December, and a storm in the log that no one else saw. Does solitude affect a person's mind? Ask any psychologist. According to some researchers, it is possible that the pressure gave rise to a collision. MacArthur's nature was aggressive. He was a coward. But the biggest weakness of this possibility is that there was not a single sign of a fight or violence on the island. The rooms of the lighthouse were as quiet as they are after a normal morning. And then there are those stories which are neither in the books of history nor in the investigation reports, but have won over the collective fate of this area for centuries. In the Outer Hebrides, where the Flannan Isles are located, there is a very old belief. It is said that in the deep waters of the Minch Jaldamru, there are some powers which the locals call the Blue Men or Storm Kelpies. According to this belief, these invisible creatures live in the depths of the sea where humans do not reach. And on a stormy night, when the waves rise high, these powers are behind them. This is not science. This is not proven. But this is the language of the people of this area. It is their cultural understanding. And when there is no logical answer to an incident, people return to those answers which have been with them for generations. There is another story which I related to this incident only. It is said that when Joseph Moore reached the island Moore on the 26th of December, 3 large black birds were sitting on the roof of the lighthouse. As soon as Moore stepped on the shore, all 3 flew away together and disappeared in the northern sky. Later, a story spread that they were not birds, but they were 3 guardians who were transformed by an unknown presence. This is not proven. This is just a popular belief, but it is remembered because it expresses the pain that people feel when someone leaves without saying goodbye or leaving a mark. After 1900, the lighthouse operated for 70 years. New guardians came, did their duty and left. But those who stayed on the island Moore for those 70 years, some of them said things that are still remembered. They said that sometimes at night when the wind was blowing in a special way, something else also came with it. Like someone takes a name, James, Donald, Thomas. Was it the effect of that solitude or the history that was melted in those walls which never ended? It is difficult to say. In 1971, the lighthouse was completely cleaned. The last person left from there. The island returned to the same silence in which it had been for centuries. The family of James Ducat kept waiting for an answer. 1 wife, 4 children. Every time a ship came to the port, they might have looked at it. No corpse was found, no farewell, just an emptiness that was not filled. The government survey considered extraordinary sea conditions to be the most probable reason. This was a convenient result that could not satisfy anyone completely. Even today, that lighthouse stands. No one lives there. No sound, no movement of feet. There is just a machine that spins its light in the sea every night, as if the machine is looking for someone. The rocks are there, the wind is there, and the sea is the same that gathered 3 people in December and then did not say anything. More than 100 to 25 years have passed. The world has changed. The techniques have changed. The ways of investigation have changed. But that night did not change.